Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we're going to be diving into a guide on steel. Now, as a jungle main, I'm mostly going to follow a build path for jungle and kind of offlane. Not going to touch too much on support steel because that might have slightly different itemization with support items, but let's go ahead and dive into it for the kit. So the passive is each time steel immobilizes an enemy hero with an ability, he gains a 10 times plus 2% HP shield for 5 seconds. So steel basically like 3 of his moves shield him. He's got a basic attack. Shield bash is his right click, swipe forward, dealing steel shield damage 50 up to 170 times plus 50% of his magic power, and then 5% of the target's maximum health. Magic damage to all enemies in front of him and stunning them for 0.5 seconds. Very strong ability. Bull rush, charge forward, dealing 80 up to 220 times 70% of his magical damage to magic power, magical damage to all enemies in steel's path. Enemy heroes struck by the bull rush are knocked back, and monsters and minions are stunned for 2 seconds. Force shield, deploy a disruptive barrier of energy, blocking all incoming enemy projectiles for 5 seconds. When an enemy hero first passes through the wall, they take X amount of damage, 60 up to 220 damage, 50% magic scaling magic damage, and are slowed by 10 up to 30% for 0.75 seconds. Now, Shield Slam is the ultimate ability, leap into the sky, crashing down at the target location, dealing 200, 300, 400, and then 80% magical damage to enemies in the area, knocking them up and stunning them for 1.5 seconds. So you can already see we got Bull Rush, immobilizes a hero, Bull Rush, Shield Bash, and Shield Slam. So all of this is going to be obviously adding on shields to steel. So let's go ahead and dive into the practice area, and we're going to talk about the kit and talk about itemization. All right, as we are here in the practice area, the first thing you have to do when a game starts is select your crest. And I am going to go ahead and say I think that the Titan crest is absolutely the best for steel. Now, the Titan crest is obviously just your tank crest, and it leads into Sapphire's Mantle, Razorback, and Near War Boots. I'm going to be honest, I don't know which one of these three is best for steel. I think that they're all just so amazing. I lean much more towards Razorback. You just kind of get in, you can turn on Razorback, and they have a choice to make. Do they hit you? Do they kite you? Either way, you're going to get some really solid like presence out of that. Sapphire's Mantle, this is the one that I say is always the easiest to get value out of. You just press the button, and enemies dealing damage slows enemies. You're going to deal damage. So you press the button, you get bigger, you get stronger, you get more health, and then you're slowing people. And Near War Boots gives you some regen, but it also gives you move speed. All of these items are good. I lean more towards Razorback, so for the sake of saying we don't even really need to touch on this too much, I like to pick Razorback. But you could literally not go wrong with any of them. All right, so here we are. Let's go ahead and get ourselves some gold. And now, as far as starting with jungle, you can already see I have the hunt. Doesn't really matter what we do, but you're going to want to start with your Shield Bash. This is your right click slam. It's how you pretty much deal most of your damage, and it's definitely going to be the ability that you want to max first on steel. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to jungling steel, and honestly when it comes to laning steel, you want to get this brimstone. So, you know, I don't know that I should recommend offlane too much because I don't play a ton of offlane. Maybe starting with the tunic is okay, but for me personally, starting in jungle, I just start with vitality beads, and I just want to lead straight into brimstone. So I try to get my first rotation, and I want to back whenever I have about 850 gold, because I started with the vitality beads, so I need 850 gold to get into the brimstone. This is how you start clearing jungle. So I don't start with the codex. Originally on like Rampage and steel, I was starting with like codex. I was starting with like a short sword, trying to see if that increased the speed of the clear a little bit, and it does a little bit, but then it slows you down for getting the brimstone, so which is not great. So we're gonna go brimstone, and then once you have the brimstone, this is how you just start burning the jungle and doing really good damage. If you're not familiar with the brimstone, this is your like fire damage around you, essentially your aura damage. You deal 20 magic damage per second to all nearby enemies, increased by 50% against monsters, and then Fire Blossom upgrades that to 25. So really solid tank item, probably the best tank item in the game, if not one of the best tank items in the game, and it's just a phenomenal item. So we're gonna go ahead and full build that item. No trickery, nothing like that. And then this is where you start getting into parts of the core build. I don't think there's anything wrong with rushing a Tainted Guard if you really want to. I tend to push this back a little bit. It really just depends on the game. So keep Tainted Guard in the back of your head, because the core build for me is Fire Blossom into Dynamo into Flux Matrix. Now why? Let's go ahead and look at these items. So what do they give? We have Fire Blossom being our main item. That this is our jungle clear and tank item. This is very important. Also for offlane, it helps you push the wave. It's just a very good item. A lot of the time in offlane, you're playing against physical damage dealers, Grux, Crunch, and so it's helpful to have that physical armor as well. But 225 health, 200 mana, 40 physical armor, and then we have that damage aura. Dynamo, this is our second damage item, or our second physical armor item, sorry. But this is really like another damage item for steel. 300 health, 55 75 physical armor, 200 mana. Immobilize. Immobilizing an enemy deals bonus magic damage in an area around them based on your maximum health, shredding their physical armor and magic armor by 30% for 4 seconds. Damage is increased against monsters, 12-second cooldown. This is so strong. I actually think that this item might be on the chopping block in terms of getting nerfed, because this is just so incredibly strong. We already know that immobilizing enemies on steel gives him a shield, and you're already going to be building and stacking health because you're a tank anyways, so you just kind of go in and you just demolish everything. You literally just jump in, you start shredding their armor, they start taking more damage, you're dealing damage with Fire Blossom, you're dealing damage with your abilities, and your team is doing damage as well. Now, Flux Matrix, on top of that, this is going to be our first magic armor item, so we're kind of rounding out the build in terms of adding additional health, and then adding more armors on. So what does this do? Flux Matrix, pretty cheap item too, 2,800 cost, 350 health, 35 magic armor, 20 ability haste. Ability haste, you can never go wrong with that. Unstable shackles. Nearby enemies take 15% additional magic damage and have their tenacity decreased by 20%. So now they get CC'd more, they take more magic damage, and like everything you do is magic damage. I mean, like literally, like the heat wave on your Fire Blossom is magic damage. This reduces their armor, so they're taking more magic damage, and then your abilities themselves are magic damage. So this is the core steel build right here. I mean, truly. And then outside of that, like I said, I would definitely consider picking up a Tainted Guard because it's just solid in the current state of the game with how strong the like 40% anti-healing is. So Tainted Guard is a really solid option. And then from here, it's kind of up to you. You could go into a Crystalline Cuirass, which I think this is also a really slept on item. It's just kind of hard to fit into a build, but let's take a look at it. 200 health, 70 magic armor, 10 ability haste, and volatile. When you take ability damage, release a pulse of energy that deals magic damage to all nearby enemies based on your maximum health. I mean, look at the synergy here, right? You just do additional damage just for being in the front line. If they have like a lot of attack speed, you could go with a Frost Guard, which this is another item. This is definitely like a counter build item. You don't really ever plan to build this one, I don't think, but it has a slowing aura, so it slows nearby enemies, but then it also reduces their attack speed. So if you really need something like that. Void Helmet's not really an item I build too much of, but it does have a lot of health, so definitely something to think about. Unbroken Will is a huge tank item. Unbroken Will, 350 health, 150 base health regen, 15 tenacity, magic armor. When you are immobilized, take 20% decreased damage for 2 seconds. I mean, you literally just jump in. If they stun you, they're gonna stun you, right? Somebody's gonna slow you, stun you, knock you up. You just take reduced damage, and then you restore 6% of your max health over 4 seconds. So Unbroken Will, incredibly strong. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could even do something like if you're end game, you could even go into a World Breaker if you really want to. 300 health, 30 tenacity, and then you just deal damage, right? Gain magic power equal to maximum health. I mean, this is just like, this is probably busted if you were to slot this like this. So who knows? Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the lane, and we'll talk about our abilities really quickly. We'll level up to level 6, but really not really a ton to talk about when it comes to the abilities. Now, I will say the kind of max up priority is definitely your right click and your Q, in my opinion. So you want to put as many points in your right click as possible. This is going to help you wave clear. This is going to help you stun your enemies, just have more damage on it. And then your Q is your dash in move, your initiate, your hard disengage, like whatever you want to do. This kit is incredibly simple. There's really not even much to show off with it, if I'm being completely honest. Whenever you go up to an enemy, you can either, if you're hard engaging from range, you just dash in, you run up to them and stun them. You know what I mean? If you're running, you can dash away or drop a wall and run through it. Turn around, stack it behind you if you're really, really low. Otherwise, you have your ultimate, which you just pretty much dive in and start a fight. But I'll let the wave push a little bit and just kind of show like some of the wave clear potential. And I mean, I'm full kitted, so the wave clears are going to be, it's going to be pretty crazy. But really, this character is pretty simple in terms of how to actually use the kit. And I definitely think that this character, or some of the items that this character slots, is going to get nerfed. But simple wave clear, you just dash in, turn around, smack the wave. I mean, you just do so much damage, and then continue to level up your right click. It's very, very simple to use this character, in my opinion. He's really, really easy. If you're looking at a fight, something you can do is use your blink initiate. So like if you're dancing them at range, you can blink initiate and then just instant stun and then displace, and then throw the wall where you feel like you need it. It's just, there's so many different variations of how you can use these 3 or 4 abilities just to get in the way you need to. So if it's easy, you can wall yourself in, walk up, get behind, stun someone, get behind them, displace them. If you're ganking in a lane, you come in behind the lane. Say you know, you come through the fog wall, you come in behind the lane, you want to dash them first, and then as they knock back, you walk into them, stun them for your laner. So there's just, it's just, you know, once you figure out this kit, you don't even really need an explanation like this. And so hopefully I'm not being too simplistic with explaining how this kit works, because it is incredibly simple. You know, you have a knockback that's a charge, you have a wall that's a slow that blocks range damage, and then you have a close range stun, and then you have a giant jump that stuns and does damage. So he's got a really, really simple kit, and you just kind of learn how to chain it together based on the situation. Like I said, if you're coming in behind the lane, say this right here is a fog wall, and I'm coming in behind the lane, he's fighting my laner, you know, I come in behind him, I knock him back, my laner pinches in, we stun him, and then you just start body blocking. That's the only other thing I can't really illustrate here. Never forget the importance of body blocking. It's so important, especially with someone like Steel, with Richter. You know, whenever you do find a way to displace them, body block them off their tower. You know, don't let them get there. It's really important. But friends, I mean, that's pretty much it. I think that there's a core like 3-4 items that I would definitely build. The 5th item slot is a little bit more interpretive, but this is about what you want to build on Steel. And there are so many max health items, right? Like there's so many max health items that are really solid. He doesn't really need any damage items, because he gets damage in the way of just being tanky and being really obnoxious. You know, you could even do something like Vanguardian on him, where you're bringing extra armor and I think it's just extra armors to the team. So there's so many options. There's so many tank options. Raymond of Renewal, I don't think is actually super amazing on him, since he doesn't really have like a ton of healing built into his kit, but then you obviously get the increased like you regenerate 10% of the damage taken over time, so you could build this on him. I usually tend to skip Raymond of Renewal on him. Like I said, Void Helm's a solid option. Warden's Faith is definitely not a terrible option. Crystalline Curious is not a bad option. Yeah, I don't know. I've even wanted to mess around more with Salvation on tanks, because I think a massive health shield could be really interesting. So I might do that at some point and see if I think it's like a crazy broken 5th slot item. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. If you feel like I missed anything, definitely do tell. Like I said, when it comes to the crest too, I'll touch on that really quickly. You can't really go wrong when it comes to how you use the crest. Go into a fight and press the button. You know what I mean? You don't really have to think much about the tank crest that much. They're not that crazy. They're not that crazy in terms of usage, but they're all really easy to get value out of, and they're all good. So the tank crest, I think the Titan's crest is what it's called. You can't really go wrong with the Titan's crest. So any of these options are really simple. Like I said, I lean into Razorback. I'm not a huge fan of Near War Boots on Steel, because he's got a lot of initiation, so you don't really need that move speed. I would rather just be like really tanky and deflecting damage. That's kind of his niche too. He just does a lot of damage. Or Sapphire's Mantle, which, like I said, I think that this one is the easiest to get value out of, because you can just turn it on and have the additional health and then be slowing enemies while you're doing damage around them. So you could literally dive into a fight, turn this on, you have more health, and then you're also slowing enemies by doing damage to them. So really easy to get value out of Sapphire's Mantle and Razorback. So friends, like I said, drop me a comment, drop a like on the video, subscribe for future Predecessor content. As always, be sure to be kind to one another, tell someone you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.